7 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. First, we will go ahead and do the roll call since Amanda's not here.
Certainly. John Kerr. David Thomas,
Here.
Amanda Carmen. A.B. Harper.
Here.
David Nollmer,
Here.
Cal Welch.
Here.
Katie Dillon. Here. Heather Day. Here. Mitch Gregory.
Here.
And then Rosalie Byham, present.
All right, so we do have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and move on with our meeting tonight. Has everyone had a chance to preview the minutes for last month's meeting? If you haven't, take a minute to kind of go through there, let me know if there's any changes need to be made. Okay. Motion and a second. Mr. Norman? All in favor? Any opposed? Moving on, any changes to the agenda? Anything to be added, Rosalie?
I'll do that from the report from the building official.
Okay. All right, then we'll get right into our new business, preliminary plat review on the Thompson Lane property.
Okay, so we looked at this last month and I'll be glad to pull out a big sheet if anybody wants to see a big sheet. Be glad to try to answer any questions you might have. I don't think anything's really changed other than we did find out from the water department that there is not a city water line right on the face of Thompson Lane right there. It's actually over a block or half block behind the houses on the other side of Thompson Lane. So they're gonna have to put a new city water line down the front of the property and are prepared to do so. And the old house is being removed.
Okay.
So that would be changes since we discussed last month.
So I know on our last meeting, we discussed the widening of Thompson Lane.
Yeah.
And that 25 foot that was gonna
Yeah.
be already there.
It's already there. It's already sitting there.
So what I've been asked is there any issue with the property owners of having an easement for the road department to be able to turn around, backhoes, whatnot, without any issues on their property?
I mean, there won't be any easement. We can I'm sure we could put a temporary easement in writing to that effect. I mean, the property's on sewer, so it's not like you're messing up septic systems or potential soil areas or something. So there should not be a problem to that extent.
With the temporary easement being an option, I couldn't see anything else. That was the only thing I wanted to make sure that road could be widened before we
Oh, yeah,
approve
we
it.
want to accommodate the county in any way we can right there, or the city. I guess it's the county and the city.
Where's the temporary easement gonna be?
It will probably I'll talk to Mr. Beal about it just to make sure we get it covered. It would probably be an equal length strip down the face of the property there.
I invited him to be here tonight, but I guess something came up.
I'll check with him before we get to final and just make sure that everything's covered on that base.
What size water line will you be?
They'll be putting in a 6-inch water line and a fire hydrant to cover the project, or at least the north. We've already got a fire hydrant down on the south end, but up toward, they'll put one about half or 2/3 of the way
Lot
toward.
3 or 4, I think it's right by lot 3 or 4.
Yeah,
It's a good midway.
Yeah, it's sort of in the middle there, so they'll put a fire hydrant in there to cover the bulk of the project right there.
Yeah, I see the fire hydrant there between 5 and 6, and you're saying the other one is?
The other one's down on 10, down there nearly to the very south end of it. It may even be off of our property just slightly.
There's one found on the Carl Baker estate as well. Right.
Yes, it's right there in front of Carl Baker's house right there. There's one right there, and then that covers basically lot 1 and 2, and then this new one will cover everything else.
And the water's coming from McMurray. That's where it's
They will
coming from.
tie in on both ends. There's water line on the south. What it is, there's water on McMurray up there, And then it comes down the section of it. There's already water on lot one right there.
Mhm.
It comes down that little side street right there. So they'll be tying in on both ends to connect the system together.
If there was any further development down Thompson Lane there.
It's
It already
got
has
water. It already has water, yes. It's just this one stretch right here that doesn't have water.
Like, it's a 6-inch line, so he's perfect for the fire hydrant and for the. And being aggressive and not having a capped off water line at the end of the road is perfect, so.
Any other questions?
And sewer is on which side?
Sewer is right basically down the middle of the road. There's already existing sewer line, basically down the middle of the road everywhere.
What type of grade do we have on this property?
It's not real steep. 565, it's 55 feet over scale. You're looking at maybe 7 or 8%, something like that. It's on a given lot, you won't have hardly any. They'll be real good house sites.
What have to do the pollen? Just say who owns the property, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, whoever gets lot one will own it. That's what'll happen to it. I believe they could clean it up and make it look nice up through there.
I know a lot of deer go there and eat, and drink at night. Did my heck with it, I said.
Driving back past this property, earlier last week, the grade's really not steep enough for water runoff would be too much, but I do like the thought that you had there of let that be a holding pond for the subdivision to catch
I
runoff.
really don't think I think there's actually a small drainway before you get to that subdivision
Yeah.
that takes it out. I don't believe it would ever even get to the pond.
I know after all the rain we had the other day, seeing all the ditches in town overflowing and roads flooding that I've never seen flood before. With all this development, that's something we're gonna have to, as a body, start to looking at real seriously. We proposed the whole, saving trees to kind of help down on the rainwater runoff, and that got shot down by the commission, but I think this last incident, the road department's gonna spend probably the next 2 months just cleaning ditches out all over the county, so that's another deal. On this one, are there any other questions for Jim on this plat before us?
No, it looked like we made the force main that wasn't in the map. Remember, there was the force main that's over there. It looks like you don't have it on here, which is good.
I'll take your word for that. I don't remember that. but-
I gave you credit today, where credit might be due. Make sure that inoperative force main was not on his plans, so.
Good deal. I'll take it whether I'm worthy of it or not. Okay.
Sometimes better lucky than good. Huh?
That's right.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? It passes.
Thank you.
So as far as the food trucks, under our discussion lines there, I mean, for this body, it's perfectly, and it's what we need to do as far as if we're wanting to do any limits, as we've discussed in previous meetings, about where we're gonna put food trucks, where they're gonna be allowed on certain commercial properties, whatnot. But at the same time, codes and zoning needs to look at doing a permitting fee so that the money that's gathered here, the sales tax is paid here and not going to other counties. But this body doesn't have the authority to do anything like that. So I'm gonna take that up in codes and zoning and go from that angle. And then we can kind of take our time determining what we want to do as far as placement on that in this body. And we're not rushed for anything. At this point, I haven't heard a real uproar about where they're at currently. So I'll open that up to discussion. Any of y'all have any other input that you want to?
Maybe on the big trucks.
Yeah, you go.
Department that would request the business license. And so all the brick and mortars are required to have a business license as well.
But nothing more than a temporary while they're doing business in Charleston County.
That's practiced in other counties as well.
Permit. The temporary business.
They got to read it.
You also like a temporary.
It's something that would have to be put in. It's not created here. So that
We would see first, before any business license is ever issued, it has to come through the building codes and zoning to see whether or not it meets the definition of a viable business in Trousdale County. And so it would come through this office first. And I would recommend a permit. That way we have good contact information and we know where the food truck is coming from, who the owners are. Again, if there's any type of concern or whatever.
Does that also require them to state where they'll be operating at?
I think that's something that you can.
That's something we can put in place in the permit system,
That way they can't just be
randomly popping up.
popping up any.
You know, what happens though, if, say I come rent this property over here and my lease comes up, you know, and I move to another, and we're gonna make them reissue a permit, is that, I mean, we're gonna refee them at that point, or can they come change it? I don't really think we should have to,
But
that's what I'm getting at, how are we gonna allow that?
Other jurisdictions will have them do a permit for a year and then they have to re-up their permit.
And if they leave, then that's fine, then they have to re-up it and come back.
I guess to your point, Mitch, I can see them just sending an email saying, hey, we've changed locations. Just to notify,
No, I agree that we should have some kind of notification, I don't think we should video them every time they move, just because, you know, their leash ran out or an issue there. Because.
I mean, I'm not around all day in town, but I do go through the case. It looks like they move around and it looks like they're taking, probably their rent spot from somebody's property. You know, like, you know, at the drugstore over here, you know, that property there or wherever. They find a place, and I'm sure they're paying the owner of that property a little fee to sit there.
Those courses is. Except you,
well, so that would be, if this goes, you know, comes out of codes and zoning, goes to the commission and is approved, it becomes an ordinance, which is law. So it can be enforced by Rosalie, it can be enforced by any deputy who stops by and checks and they don't have their paperwork in order, then they can be cited right there. So that's how that'll progress. That's why I think it's better for that part of the discussion to go through codes and zoning as law. As far as where it needs to go, how it fits into our zoning, that's what needs to come here first. That to me is more of a planning issue that we need to address as this body. But that's not something we have to do, you know, tonight, or they said we get the fee in place, and at least we're recouping the sales tax that we've been losing as a county. And then if it becomes a greater issue, then we can take it back up and actually put a place for it in zoning, other than just random in commercial. Because right now, everything's on private land anyway, so it's between the landowner and the individual selling at this point. So that becomes a trespassing issue, which the sheriff's department would handle at that point. So I don't know if there's really anything to do, just my opinion, I don't think there's anything really to do at this point to get any stricter on that. But I do see the need to try to recoup if our brick and mortar businesses are gonna have to pay, and they do, sales tax and whatnot to Trousdale County for operating. Gallatin shouldn't be making money off of Trousdale County or Lebanon or Macon. So
What is anybody know permit fee? Where?
A business license. A lot of times they start at somewhere between 300 and 400. So they, I know that, one group looked at making it, a smaller term, and so they tried to modify it based on that.
I'll get with Rita and try to find out what our current rate is. And then that's usually for a year, or it might even be longer than that. And then just prorate it down to when they're gonna operate. We do it like a monthly fee. If they want to pay a year at a time, that's great. If they want to do 6 months, give them the option to do that.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. We have some of these, ice places, snow cone places, they're not gonna be operating this time of year, so. That would charge them full for that.
But if you have, there's a few things in here that domino or collaborate with each other. So if you're requesting the general regulations hold liability insurance, it's also gonna most likely state the property that they'll be on, even if it is private. So if you can state if the insurance changes or if the address changes, you can do a notification. You can do something similar to that kind of collaboration and something that comes on. That way their lease agreement doesn't change. They just notify the factors that have changed within that space that they're operating. And then they also have an alcohol, should alcohol be permitted? Well, if it's on private property, it's up to the, you chime in on this, because I know we saw this with Goose Gala. If you're serving alcohol, you have to apply with the state of Tennessee and the property owner has to state and sign that they approve for alcohol to be served on there. And then there also has to be the insurance for that. So there's a few things that's double dipping on the inquiry of the insurance that might be able to place some language so it collaborates well as it's one step for Rita or whoever's department it is. So, hey, this is just my latest alcohol permit. This is my latest insurance based on the new real estate that I'll be on, location.
Does this, show my insurance, does this permit require that we show insurance?
On the sample that we received sometime back, this is that one that, it was one of the recommendations. I just happened to be, keeping it all. It's a general, and that's a standard requirement for anybody to have a private business come on their property.
I mean, if I had
And I know somebody that rents some property in the back of the room, so I could probably ask him if I need to ask, if I can. May I?
Yeah.
Would you mind? So we're looking at, so I know you have real estate that you rent out. And so if you have real estate, you're gonna require them to have insurance. If it were a food truck.
That's their own liability, yeah. That's on them. But. Yeah, if they're renting it for me, they have to provide their own insurance. And I don't think it's the owner of the property, you lease out for an RV. I think that's kind of on that's on their end, in my opinion. Well, it's brick and mortar, that's a different story, I think, but it's just like a landlord or whatever.
you require though, do you check, I mean, that's one thing, you check, make sure that they require, is it just on them if they want to have it?
You gotta go back and forth.
Yeah, I've had those things.
But see, if you have an event, there's event insurance.
Right.
So, and so
I mean, me personally would want to require phase on my land. I have some insurance, but I don't
you
know.
were online, you were.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a requirement, I was just curious. in the permit.
There's no requirements that are set at this time. This is just a collaboration of an example of what's out there. From what I understand, and insurance is a common ground standard. In today's society, most definitely is. Yes.
And even if the county does an event, the county has liability insurance just for that event.
No, I agree with that, but I didn't know if it was mandatory.
I think it should be, when we do a permit or however we look at this going forward, whether it's a permit or a temporary business license. I think that should be one of the requirements is that it is, you do have to have your own liability insurance.
And what I'm saying, if they're serving alcohol,
Mhm.
by law, state law, they're required to have the insurance anyway.
Yeah, so it would be kind of like with the blasting permit, we're just asking them to produce the documents that the state's already demanded they have. So their liability insurance, their liquor license that they would have. There's one more that escapes me, but their health department inspection, having make sure that all that's in order. So we don't just have someone randomly popping up with a barbecue and on the side of the road and, selling food, saying they're a food truck.
Can we do a DBA too? We make a DBA request, like, so if you've got a business and that's what it's in and you're doing a DBA underneath that, we ask that you come change that on your lease agreement too, for the group that's using that space. Those are just some lessons learned when you have one thing registered in one person's name and something else registered in another's name, so
Yeah.
it can get quite diluted.
I know when businesses come to get approval in order to go get their business license from Rita, whether it be commercial with a brick and mortar, or if it's some type of mobile boutique or anything else like that, we have to have all that information, what the name of the business is, what their address is, and everything else like that before they ever go over there to Rita. Personally, I would recommend a permit. That way I can ensure that they have been inspected by the health department and they're following the NFPA standards as well, because if they are using fuel gas, we need to make sure that it's going to be safe. And that they do have a hood and they have fire suppression if they do have fryers and things like that. Because just going and getting a temporary.
Good luck. We wish you the best with this.
Any other further comments on this subject? Any action want to be taken on it?
The Board of Zoning and Appeals, look. Let us know. He said he was giving it to me.
Make a motion to reset it over to the codes and zoning.
Our codes and zoning.
Well, anything that comes out of there, I'll send it back through here for y'all just to be able to peruse and look at. Give your opinions on whether you support it or not before it goes to the full commission. Other thing that I've got here,
He has a motion, but there's a second.
so I got
I'll
a
second.
motion, second. All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? There it goes. PUD planning unit and planned unit developments. So I'm doing that over in codes and zoning. First meeting on that's going to be
20th.
Yeah, 2 weeks. We already have from Rick Gregory what Cheatham County, I believe it was, is what he used as his footprint. We have what I think that all I got forwarded around to all of y'all also. He's converted that to Trousdale specific instead of being Cheatham County specific. We're gonna look through that. It looks really good as far as just a basic. It's probably more specific in areas than we would have ever thought of going. I just don't, in any of this stuff personally, I don't see reinventing a wheel when they've already paid all the legal fees to get it done. Why not just get it for free? But we need to go through it and both in codes and zoning, and if Mr. Kerr wants to here, kind of look through that and make sure there's nothing we need to tweak, making it more specific for Trousdale County before we just push it on through. But that will create a new zoning in our list of zonings. So it won't replace anything. It'll be an addition to, because that PUD could be commercial or it can be commercial and residential made up in that same zoning. And so I think it's going to be great for the community, especially for people who have these projects like Mr. Goku brought up the 10 acres up the road here. Normally we would, at this point, blanket open zoning on R3s. We're kind of backing off of on large properties. But because we don't know what's going to go in, we have to assume it's always going to be multifamily. But you bring a PUD in and that's already a plan. We can look at that plan and say, yeah, that's what we want in our county, we'll approve, and then we can send it to the commission. Commission say, yeah, that's what we want. We have infrastructure for this. You know, you might not have infrastructure for 100, apartments in that area, but you might have it for 36 houses. So, it locks the landowner and the county into an agreement of this is the project we're approving. I think that's gonna be a really good thing for us. I'm gonna try to get that, we're started the new year now, and so I got, the impact fee is almost completely out of code and zoning and onto the commission. Blasting fees got approved, first reading, so it'll have a second reading on that. So there's gonna be $100 fee associated to that permit, so that'll become law. So that enforcement kind of comes off of Rosalie's desk and becomes more of it's law. So now the sheriff's department can enforce it. If they cite anyone for not having their paperwork, then you can go before a judge and the judge determines their restitution or penalty. So, but now that those items are gone, I'll start bringing some of these others in, and I don't know how. I want this body to be able to have eyes on what we've done with the codes and zoning through Rick Gregory. I'd like to do that before, as we're going through and showing it during work session. I'll try to get it in here also. I know a lot of people are starting out, that's getting closer to being unveiled. A lot of people are getting nervous. Hey, that's a thick book and you just want us to blindly do it. I don't want anyone to blindly vote on anything. I want you to be able to have time to go through it, see what we did. A lot of what he's doing in the combination of things, he's taking a lot of it out and putting it into appendix and putting it in chart form where it's not, written out page by page by page. It's a form that just kind of like what we did the use form here that we started, where, if you're in this zoning, you can do this, and, it's just done out as a grid. And so that takes a lot of the wording out of our codes and zoning. It's just right there as far as uses and what. So those are the things that we're doing on that. That's the closest thing I've got for a report from the chair. I kind of combined both of those together. Any questions? Any suggestions on maybe something I need to be looking at in codes and zoning side of things? All right. Hearing none. Anything from you, Rosalie?
Yes, in front of you, you'll see an email. That I received, our representative from GNRC is no longer with GNRC. So we're in between waiting on another person to show up. And with this being a pretty slow month, I went to a training in Dixon County, and the chairman of their planning commission sat next to me. And I asked him, oh, well, how do you do this, that, and this? And they have their own independent planning consultant. And so I asked for information, and I reached out to her, and this is what the information that I received and what she does. And I'd like to get your input on possibly doing this rather than GNRC. I know we've been pretty well tied to GNRC for many, many, many years. And there's been some gaps in services. Our zoning map, for instance, has been a huge challenge for us because things just were not updated. And she would be able to do that. So there's like a basic contract, and she would do it for us, very similar to what GNRC does. So just wanted to get your input. Do you think that this is something that we might like to pursue? She is a certified planner with the APA, and in fact, she did work with GNRC a year or two ago and was the manager of the on-call consultants as well. So she's very familiar with what's happening. I told her a little bit about our county And she went to our website and was looking at our meetings that we had. And I told her that we have a very robust planning commission and board of zoning appeals. You guys take your positions very seriously. And where we are positioned with Trousdale County being as small as we are, but we're right between Wilson County and Sumner County, the growth is coming here. And so it's a huge opportunity to really make a difference and make sure that we are positioned well to be able to handle all the things that are coming our way, and they are coming our way. I'm getting numerous calls for zoning verifications of R3 properties. And they're looking and asking me for letters saying R3, what does that allow? And they're saying, okay, so this means 72 units for this piece of property. And I said, well, no, I'm not gonna sign it like that because nothing's been brought forward to planning. And site plans have to be approved. So the growth is coming and we need to be well prepared.
So with this gentleman leaving us, was that 5 GNRC representatives since Rick?
I think that is.
3,
four.
I think, 3 or 4.
Oh, no, more. And I've been here almost, it'll be 5 years. I've been through 4, just in
And then there was
my
one
tenure alone.
between when she came and
Yeah.
when Rick left. So, yeah, so that's 5. So I know that the mayor has had a group reach out to him offering their services, a private engineering firm. So I'd like to see what their offer is going to be also. Since we're one of the main bodies that's going to use this service, I think it'll be important for Mr. Kerr to be, as chairman, to be involved in that conversation with the mayor to, look at both of these proposals as what's going to give us the best for the dollar. But I think this is a great idea. I know we talked with Rick Gregory when we hired him to do the codes and zoning editing and about doing the same position. And he was very honest with us. He's like, look, I got 5 years before I'm done and I'm on a beach somewhere fishing. He said, I don't want you guys to hire me for 5 years and then be left in a ditch somewhere with no one to take my place. So he declined the offer, but I don't think any of us have been truly happy with the job GNRC's done in the last couple of years. Not even knowing, what some of the properties have water or don't have water, and it's hard to make recommendations in the county if you don't know anything about the county.
Or it has water, and they're using Castilian Springs water, so
Yeah,
fire
versus
hydrant
ours.
is not eligible.
Yeah. It's just, and stuff that regularly reoccurs. But you have so much turnover in personnel time, they figure it all out, well, then they've left and we gotta start all over again, and we're educating them when they should be educating us. But I think doing it this way and having our own consultant, no matter which way we go, I think it's gonna be a better way. We can lock them down for long term and be able to have an actual asset instead of someone who gets showing up.
And I will say this too, since she had worked with GNRC and Rick Gregory came from GNRC, I reached out to Rick and asked, had he heard of this individual? And he had and was impressed and even asked for contact information so that he could pass that along to another county that needs a planning consultant. And I said, please don't take this one.
Let us have first dibs anyway. All right, anything else?
Let's see, the position for the office manager will be posted. And we'll be looking for someone who is very tech savvy, shall we say, as well as there'll be a math test and everything. And that position will also take the minutes for both the BZA and the Planning Commission. And so the secretary for the Planning Commission will just have the responsibility to sign the plans. And I think that would be equitable for whoever planning secretary is. And that's it.
All right. Any other discussion points or comments this body has? You got anything, Jim?
Well, just, I'll jump back into your last few minutes. 5 years with Vic Gregory would be better than what we've had with GNRC for the last 5 years. So we don't want him to turn his nose at that, and if he'll take it, I might consider it. Because that's about the best you can hope for anybody, probably, no matter who it is.
Remember we had one that for whatever year, 2 years, I don't think I understood a word she said. And I said, right.
The only other thing I would throw out is on the food truck stuff, just something to think about is how is this gonna affect like just one day things? Like, I know there's 4 or 5 little coffee vehicles that park on Christmas parade day. Is this, I mean, they're not gonna come in and pay $300 or $400 to do that, or is this gonna affect the churches having a barbecue out in front of Food Land kind of thing? I mean, just stuff to think through as you get along in the process.
And I think those are actual different events than what we're referring to.
I understand what I mean. So there might need to be, there might need to be a time frame specified, like if you're going to be here more than, 36 hours or 24 hours, then you have to do this. But if it's just gonna be a 2-hour thing or 3-hour thing for certain, just.
Yeah.
I know there were some exemptions they had on there
Yeah.
too, so, and some things I've worked with nonprofit, a few different nonprofits, and I told them forward. So like Cumberland University would acquire the permit,
Mhm.
is what they would do, and then the vendors would pay their
Yeah.
or the chamber,
Yeah.
and then the chamber would manage that with the county and the cities with everything, so.
Some-
There's some ways to make that an exemption.
Yeah.
Or prepared for a meeting when they have, because they're gonna have.
Now, I will throw this out to a sole proprietor. Business license is like $15.
Oh, wow, okay. Good, big difference than a brick and mortar then. Wow.
That's something I want to get a hold of Rita, pick her brain and find out all those different classifications and costs for those classifications before we start dealing off into, because exactly, I don't want to, what we're trying to do here with food trucks, like the Euro place and
Man.
some of the coffee places that have been here for almost a year.
Months and months, years.
Yeah, and then the ones you get that come in, the one on, the corner there, at the red light, that they pop up for a day and then maybe 2 days a week. But they're there every week, so we need to look at how we're going to, because that's the thing with food trucks, there's no constant there. They're changing, and it's the benefit of a food truck. They're following the crowds and where they can make the most for each event. But at least 2 of our food trucks have become brick and mortars. So that's kind of the benefit of it also. It's a way of testing the waters before you do a full
They're still
investment.
using that food truck at other places.
But at
But
least,
they have a business license.
Yeah.
too.
so at least their sales tax is coming to us. We don't have to worry about them. But I know the commission has spoken to me and spoken up in meetings multiple times about, losing the sales tax. And honestly, it might be the difference of, $100, $200 worth of sales tax per vendor. But after a while and over a couple of years, that adds up. So, and if we're gonna force that on our brick and mortars, it should be a fair playing field.
And 2, we're gonna be having a lot of transient workers coming to the county. It will happen. They will need to eat. They will need to be fed. They will not fit in to just our brick and mortars. They will be having food
They're
trucks.
building a road, we'll be building a big old bridge out yonder, and I'm sure their food trucks will be right down there.
Well, and you got Enbridge too, and all the
Yeah,
guys
Enbridge.
building
Yeah.
the compression plant out here.
It'll be next month, this year. And also I hear trade school fixing to,
Yeah, the construction at the trade school is about to
fixing to
start.
start up, I think, pretty soon.
Well, if there's nothing else,
Motion to adjourn.
all right, I got a motion. Do I have a second? We are due.